Malta was hit by the refugee phenomenon mainly from 2002 onwards, because we had the major influx of boat arrivals from that time, people coming by boat from Libya. The major nationalities that we had over a good 10 years were from Somalia, mainly, Eritrea, then followed by smaller numbers from Ethiopia and then West Africa, Nigeria, etc. From 2015, however, we saw a very big change in the mode of arrival of refugees. Many people thought that the refugee situation, the refugee problem was over, but it wasn't at all the case. It's just that people, the route changed and the populations changed and the way they came. So instead of coming by boat, now many people were coming by plane. And in fact, the majority of refugees that we have coming to Malta now from 2015 onwards were from Libya and Syria. Once refugees come to Malta, they can apply for asylum, and that is what they do, because obviously the main thing to remember is that refugees come because they are fleeing difficult situations in their home country. War and other human rights violations. People don't come just because it's more comfortable or they want a better life, but many times they are forced to leave, okay? And they actually flee their country and then seek protection in a safe third country. When they apply for protection, they can get different kinds of statuses. So there is either refugee status, which is the highest form of protection, so to say, or subsidiary protection. These are the two forms of international protection that exist. The main difference between refugee status and subsidiary protection is the fact that people with refugee status are entitled to family reunification, meaning they can bring their family members over from their country of origin. It is theoretically and it is a right they are entitled to, but in practice it is very difficult still, because there are still a number of criteria that people need to meet. The family needs to be able to leave their country, so it's not easy, but at least they have that right. People with subsidiary protection, unfortunately, are not entitled to bring their families over, so we have situations where people have been in Malta for 10, 15 years with protection. They have the right to stay, but they are alone. In terms of the protection, subsidiary and refugee status, the migrants will be entitled to almost every other service in Malta. So they're entitled to benefits, they're entitled to healthcare, just like we are, to education, primary, secondary and tertiary, etc. So to the complement of rights. Then there is another form of protection, which is a local form of protection, which is called temporary humanitarian protection. And this is given to people who do not satisfy the criteria for international protection, and it's generally given on grounds of vulnerability. So they have a specific, for example, health or mental health condition, which means that they need to be in Malta for the time that they are taking treatment. With THP, the rights that people have are much more limited. Unfortunately, they are not entitled to benefits, for example. They're also not entitled to bring their family over, etc. With THP, the children of families with THP would be entitled to education, healthcare, etc. Healthcare they're all entitled to. Then the other form of protection is THPN, temporary humanitarian protection new, which is another form of local protection, which was given before. It was given to people who had been in Malta for a number of years before 2008. The government had decided to stop this, but now things changed and we're not clear exactly what the new policy is, but it seems that a new policy has been instated where if people have been in Malta for a year and they have been working and they can prove this with the appropriate documentation, they are entitled to this THPN. But as I said, it's not clear exactly who it's being granted to. We're still a bit in the dark about how it's actually being implemented. If a person doesn't get any of these forms of protection, they would be rejected. Okay? And a person who is rejected is liable to deportation, can be sent back to their country at any time. That doesn't happen. Essentially, they are in Malta with what we call a tolerated stay, and this tolerated stay entitles them to a work permit. They do have access to the labour market, but a work permit that is tied to the employer. They will have access to basic healthcare, and their children will have access to education, primary and secondary. But those are essentially the different kinds of protection statuses in Malta. And we get around 1,200 applications for protection every year. And about 80% now of individuals who apply for asylum in Malta are given some form of protection. Which goes to show in a way that the people arriving in Malta are really people that need, asylum, that need protection in the country.